Welcome back to the news on RT America tonight. There is a new report out from Food Democracy Now! And the Detox Project, and they have found alarming levels of the chemical glyphosate. Now, the report says glyphosate is in many of America's most popular foods. Folks, this is a weed killer, glyphosate, and it was classified by the World Health Organization as a probable human carcinogen. Joining me now to talk about this is Dave Murphy. He is founder and executive director at Food Democracy Now!, who issued the report. Dave, good to have you on tonight. Tell us, how dangerous is glyphosate? How dangerous is it?
Sure. Well, listen, glyphosate, it's the main ingredient, chemical ingredient in Roundup, Monsanto's best-selling weed killer Roundup. And the issue is that the glyphosate use has exploded in the last 20 years because farmers in the U.S. and around the world have adopted genetically engineered crops, Roundup-ready crops that are engineered to survive being sprayed with large amounts of glyphosate, this weed killer. The problem really is, and we found this in these studies, we really had no idea where we were going to find or how much we were going to find, but it's very shocking that the highest level that we found is in Cheerios, General Mills Cheerios, which is one of the first cereals that a mother feeds their child at between ages 6 months and a year. And those levels found in Cheerios, which are 1,125.3 parts per billion, are simply off the charts. And the question really is, what is the U.S. government doing to protect the American people? And the quick answer to that is it appears not much, unfortunately.
And when you look at the major food groups that it ends up in, how alarming is this? Should Congress take a second look at this?
Yeah, listen, glyphosate has been on the market for 40 years. And you look at what we did is a 1.5-year-long investigation into the scientific research that the EPA accepted. We also studied the research that the EU, the European Union, used to determine what were the safe levels, what they're called as acceptable daily intake, or ADI levels, that the U.S. federal government allows. The U.S. government's number is almost 6 times higher than the EU, even though they relied on the same safety studies or the safety assessments to determine that level. So what we found in this new study with an FDA-certified laboratory, shockingly, the highest amounts that we found in this is really a first round of testing to understand how widespread Monsanto's weed killer is in our food supply. I'm from a small town in Iowa, and I'll just say this. It's the most widely used chemical in the Midwest. And the problem with that is Iowa has the highest rates of cancer. And like you said, last year, the World Health Organization, the most credible health organization on the planet, 17 of their scientists reviewed glyphosate and determined that it was a Class 2A probable carcinogen. Now, ironically, Monsanto responds to these leading scientific experts and calls it junk science. And they say that they're activist scientists, which is shocking. Even worse is the U.S. federal government's response. The EPA basically said they've agreed with Monsanto. And that is, of course, after Monsanto had 2 or 3 meetings behind closed doors and showed all their scientific evidence. The real problem is, though, the data that Monsanto submits for these safety assessments in the 1970s and 80s and now 90s is out of date. Even worse is the fact that they're allowed to hide that data from the American public and even the scientific community. So you can't really properly assess the safety of a chemical if half the data is hidden from the scientific community.
Interesting.
We're just calling for a further investigation from the EPA. And here's the thing. So you asked about the food levels. What we really found is in 2014, General Mills, Cheerios, removed GMOs from Cheerios. So now we have the highest level on a product that does not contain GMOs, but it's because there's pre-harvest spraying of Roundup on oats and on barley and wheat to basically, it's a pre-harvest drying agent to get that crop off a farmer's field and sold to the market as soon as possible.
There's no doubt a domino effect to all of this. Dave Murphy, founder and creator, executive director of Food Democracy Now! Appreciate your time tonight. I'm sure there'll be more research on all of this. Thanks so much.